Welcome to Alpha Wolf Trading. Did you know that there's over 12,000 stocks or companies that trade on the OTC? Between the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, you have over 7,000 companies. But us as retail investors, we wouldn't know that unless we were researching. Because why? Wall Street focuses on the elite, the big companies. And where the retail investor has their advantage is in small and micro-cap stocks. Why? Because you have the opportunity to speak directly with leadership. That is what this is all about here at Alpha Wolf Trading. We're trying to find the hidden gems, and we interview the executive teams of companies that we think meet the parameters to be those hidden gems. I also want to make sure you understand that this is not a paid-for promotion. I collect no compensation for the interviews I do here. These companies that I interview have been identified as potential opportunities for me and the members of Alpha Wolf Trading to receive a higher than average return on our investment. These companies I have identified either because of a technical setup on a chart, a fundamental change within the organization, management team, new products, all kinds of different things that actually lead me here. But what do I think is the most important? Leadership. And that is why I do these interviews. I want to understand what drives the person that is leading the charge. I want to feel their passion. I want to understand their vision and the strategy that they're going to use to achieve success. That is what these interviews are for. I want to understand the share structure and the cap table, the size of the TAM, the total addressable market. This is the opportunity to learn all of those things. So sit back and enjoy. And if you learn anything from today's interview, do us a favor. Subscribe to the Alpha Wolf Trading YouTube channel. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with a follow-up interview, and it's been a while since we did the first one, but that's okay because there's all kinds of fantastic things to talk about here. Sam Rubin, CEO of Lightpath Technologies, ticker symbol LPTH, traded on the NASDAQ. And Sam, welcome back.
Thank you, Tim. Great to be back. Good to see you again.
And you have had just a flurry of good news. I mean, you can't tell from the stock, but that's you can say that from 90% of the companies in small cap space, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I only care about one. So yeah.
So I mean, you've had a flurry of good news, and the stock you haven't been rewarded. You haven't been rewarded for what you've accomplished from the moment you came in that door, right? Yeah. How long you been there now, Sam?
2.5 years.
2.5. Boy, that flies by pretty quick, huh?
Yeah. Well, there was such an enormous amount of cleanup to do that it just consumed me. Yeah.
And then you had COVID, a pandemic, right?
Yeah. Just to make things interesting, yeah.
You had some challenges in China. I mean, you stepped into a really
a deep one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good one, right?
Yeah.
But
as my COO says, it's nothing we haven't experienced between all, the senior leadership team. We have a very experienced leadership team, all of them new, right? So it's the entire C-suite. It's nothing we haven't experienced before. It's just we never experienced all of it in one company at the same time.
Well, then nobody's experienced the pandemic because I'm pretty sure that was the first time ever, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the impressive thing.
Yeah,
you've come out of it all, and I would say, how much stronger are you today than you were 2 years ago?
Well, look, we've cut costs. significantly, right? All the way from manpower to operation cost to reducing size of the board. We went from 9 people to 6. We don't need a board of 9 people in our size, right? We discontinued the theft in China that was ongoing for years. They stole millions of dollars. The guy, by the way, got arrested and indicted on criminal charges of embezzlement. So, you know, we've also been successful there and will be rewarded financially for that. And then on top of all of that, during that time, we also implemented a new strategy, taking us from a component company to a product company, solution company. And that has been sort of behind the scenes. So everyone kept saying, you know, oh, why don't you have any news? Why don't we have any news? And we said, we have a feeling it will all come out in one time. It's just the way things are. And indeed it did, you know, and in a span of 4 weeks now, we reported a record backlog of 31 million. That's 50% higher than what we've been averaging for the last few years, 30% higher than any other record backlog we had. Significant reduction in the sales in China at the same time. So we far less depend on China, which was more the lower end products, and far, far more growth in the US and Europe, especially from defense. You know, far better operations, streamlined, continued improvements. You can see it in everywhere in our income statement, in gross margins, in expenses, every single thing. And lastly, coming out with really an innovative camera that is just creating shockwaves in our market. And just, you know, a classic taking our core competency, core capabilities of what we have in components, and instead of selling them to someone to build it, we're building it. And we're, you know, making now a camera that does the job of 2 different cameras in one. It's a big game changer. So exciting times, absolutely.
All right, so let's. I want to get to the Mantis, but I want to back up a little bit because one of the big things that I saw a long time ago was the BD6, right?
Huge,
night vision or thermal, I guess, thermal coating, right?
Yeah, thermal imaging. And, you know, together with the new materials that we exclusively licensed from Naval Research Lab, from the government, just about a year ago. So together with those, we actually now cover everything from visible light to night vision to thermal imaging through those materials. And that's very exciting. That's what makes a camera like Mantis possible. But what's really a big deal there, and we've been saying it for years, and it took, I guess, a shockwave to the global supply chains for the government to understand, this material replaces the use of germanium, which currently the government buys from China. It is one of those materials. It's not a rare earth mineral, but it's a key mineral. It's a key material defined in the list of key materials that 95% of it gets imported, and most of it, the far biggest majority of it, is in China and Russia, our 2 biggest potential adversaries. And
that's awesome.
Everything in infrared imaging, in solar panels, in optical communication fiber depends on this germanium. And so our BD6 and those new materials are a replacement for it. And the government has finally woken up. It has finally woken up because it heard from its customers, the DoD, the defense contractors, the primes, all of those, in writing, commitments from them to say, we're going to decrease our dependence on germanium if this material, BD6, and those black diamond glasses will be available. And so the government now understands that, you know what, importing $300+ million of material a year from China and your entire thermal imaging and infrared imaging in your DoD depends on it is probably not a good way. And so, you know, we're working very, very closely, some significant funding opportunities, some significant work with them on expanding our operation capacity here in the US for that. And
And
really,
where does BD6 come from, Sam?
we make it here in Orlando. It's a synthetic material, so we produce it here. It's from scratch, and the ingredients that go into it come from much friendlier countries. A lot of it from Canada, some of it in Southeast Asia, but different countries in Southeast Asia. Some of it is mined here in the US, even, believe it or not. But it does not require such a dependence on those supply chains from Russia and China.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal. This is a game changer in the world of optics and in the world of the military optics specifically. One of the recent laws passed by Congress and by the House required within, I believe, 3 years, defense contractors to provide information on the origin of every single material, but down to the raw ingredients going in. So it's not enough today, they buy germanium from, say, Germany, and
Right.
Germany buys it from China. So it looks like it was made in Germany. But, the government figured that part out, and so it requires the origins of the raw material. And so everyone understands that in a few years' time, they will not be able to have systems that are 90% germanium. And so we're facing a incredible growth.
And you've already, it's not like your product has not been tested. It's been tested and proven, right?
Oh, it's been qualified here by the Marines. It's already being used extensively. It's in a key, very high profile defense program that we just won. And that was what brought us to that 31 million backlog. And it was recently also qualified by European Space Agency for use in space, specifically as a replacement for germanium. They saw it even, over a year ago, and already funded us to go and qualify the material to replace germanium in space.
Which is, I mean, if people aren't picking up on what you're throwing down right now, they're pretty slow.
Well, a lot in it. There's a lot in it, but I think the key element here is germanium bad, BD6 good, and the government now understanding it and putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, and you're not talking about just a tiny little industry. You're talking about
massive,
pretty big industry that I think, I'm pretty sure is growing too.
It's growing incredibly because new capabilities come, like our Mantis camera. That's a growth catalyst now in that industry, because you can now do with a small handheld camera things that beforehand you needed a cryogenically cooled $100,000 camera that took an hour just to warm up before you could start imaging anything. So the change is happening, and we're leveraging those. We're using them as stepping stones to become something different, to grow up into products instead of components.
All right, so now that we've talked about BD6, and we could just actually end the conversation right there, and I think people should recognize how undervalued the stock is, right?
Yeah.
If we just cut it off right there, but we don't have to cut it off right there, because now we can go to Mantis, right? And this is, go ahead.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And you can go into the press release or into the webpage for it, either way. So Mantis is what is called a multispectral camera. So today, if you want to do infrared imaging, you're doing one of the two. You're either using what is called long wave or mid wave, two separate cameras, completely separate. And everyone has their function. The long wave is usually the very small infrared cameras that you see on drones, on handheld devices, on temperature measurement devices. Those are really good because they're small, lightweight, don't need cooling, but you can only see with them a very short distance, and they're not sensitive enough. The mid wave is much better in terms of sensitivity, distance you can see, range of temperatures. But until now, it required a separate camera that was cryogenically cooled, and that would cost around $100,000. We've now developed a camera that is like the long wave, meaning it is compact, uncooled, the size of almost like a golf ball in size, but it also images in the midwave. It not only images in the midwave, being that size and weight and power consumption and uncooled, but it also does the job of the long wave. So we've combined two cameras into one and drastically reduced the cost of ownership of that camera. So instead of buying a $80,000 camera plus a $10,000 camera for the long wave, so $90,000 on two cameras, you can spend now $15,000 on one camera that in many, many applications can replace both of them. Not in all applications, but in many, many good applications. And so
did you say 15 or 50?
15, 1-5.
Okay.
15 with super great margins for us.
Okay.
And this is, in some applications, this is a big deal because in the midwave, you can see always things that you cannot even see in the long wave. And the only way to see it until now was these $80,000, $100,000 cooled large cameras, right? Imagine cryogenically cooling. It has a system in there that takes the temperature down to 100 Kelvin, right? That's like God knows how many in Fahrenheit negative, but extremely cold temperature. You have to cool the detector just to be able to see something. And now we can do it in many applications without that. So, for example, we can image for the military, we can see missiles firing or cannons firing. All of those are very high temperature events that happen in the midwave. Until now, you could see them only with this super expensive camera. So now, we're working with different contractors on coming up with much smaller compact cameras that can detect fire as in enemy firing. Either hypersonic missiles that are so fast, the only way to see them is a heat signature, or, cannons firing, or even, the gunfire. We've done demonstrations in the firing range where we can actually see the muzzle flash of a rifle firing. In firefighting, which already uses extensively infrared imaging, in firefighting today, they use those long wave cameras, which can see through smoke, and therefore they can see where their hotspots are and where people are, right? So they can see through smoke where to go and recover people from. But what they can't see is what's called smoldering, which is a flameless fire that happens oftentimes after you finish putting out the fire, especially in a wildfire. It can linger there for hours. And so in a wildfire, it can even linger there for 2 weeks. So you often see, okay, they put out the fire, but there's still a fire engine there, a fire truck. Why? Well, they have no way of knowing if there's smoldering there, if there's still this, very low, almost like a charcoal, like a barbecue fire kind of thing, right? Without flames. But this camera can see it. So we're working with wildfire departments to demonstrate how they can now put this on a drone, put this on a helicopter and fly around and really verify that the wildfire is completely out and not find out a week later that it resurfaced or restarted. So lots of great applications like that, it's not the entire market, but if I can get a quarter of this $8 billion market, I'll take it.
Oh, that's I can understand that, Sam. That makes sense to me. Yeah, why not? If you can get it.
But this is the beauty of going into products now, right? When we were in components, we were making enabling technology, we were making great components, but we relied on the customers to take and do something great out of it and for them to be successful. We're now using it to step up and to say, okay, instead of me now making these great optics that can do multispectral imaging for someone to integrate it into the camera, I'm going to integrate it in. I'm going to go and sell a $15,000 camera instead of a $2,000 lens system. Why not?
So Sam, you guys are doing the manufacturing on the cameras themselves?
Yeah. So we have, the beauty in Lightpath is because for years it developed its own technology for the molding, for the fabrication. There's an entire team here of electronic engineering, mechanical engineering, even software, which isn't usually something you see in an optical component company. And we're sitting in Orlando, which is a hub of photonics and integrated optics and electronics and defense, So it's easy to recruit and build a team. And so we build it in-house.
So, I don't know what I guess how big of an order you could get, right, at one time, but do you have the capacity to be able to manufacture?
Yeah. So that's a great question, and first of all, we work with a partner company on some of the electronics because it doesn't make sense for us to go into, the PCBs and the electronics and all of that part. But what is really important, and this is why we felt like it's natural for us to step in, the really complicated part is the optics. I'd say that 70% of the build is spent on aligning and building the optical system.
Okay.
Because you buy the detector in. We're not making a semiconductor detector, right? You buy it in just like you would buy a CCD from Sony. So we buy this in from a US manufacturer of such infrared detectors. We have it customized for us to be able to do this, unique capability. And then we have another company help us with the electronic side and calibrate, and we assemble it with our optics and make the complete system. And so from that point on, the different variants of different optics. Okay. So a zoom lens instead of a fixed focus lens, or a wide lens instead of a high magnification lens, and so on.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you're comfortable that you guys can handle it, right? If you get
yeah, absolutely.
Is there any extensive, tooling up? How many cameras do you think you could do in a month?
So that is a good point. We're actually in the middle of construction here in Orlando, and we've essentially nearly doubled our space in Orlando. We signed that lease more than a year ago and have been building it at our pace according to our cash flow and what we could do. We signed it because we knew we're pivoting in this direction. So China, went from being 30% of our backlog to 10% now, and probably going to keep going down. Not only because the economy there is not doing well, but because we're really growing outside of China. So we knew the growth was going to be here in the US. We've been targeting the defense. We've been targeting the infrared, which is, mostly here in the US. Right. And so we're right up in the process of doubling our clean room space, which is where those assemblies get done, and gearing up to be able to produce far, far more here.
So Sam, I want to go back for a minute. I want to highlight one thing about you specifically, where you came from, right? And the company you were at prior. What was the growth that you had back at the place?
I joined when we were 40 million in revenue, and over 15 years grew it to 500 million by the time I left. And
I just wanted to highlight that.
And acquisitions. Yeah. No, absolutely. It was a hell of a ride, and I was not the CEO, I was the right-hand man of the CEO. But as a right-hand man, you get to do a lot of the interesting stuff, and unfortunately, some ugly stuff sometimes. But yeah, 40 to 500 million in 15 years, absolutely. And no debt to the company.
No debt.
And no debt.
Yeah.
Cash flow. Yeah.
So it's just really important for me that people understand that, because you may not have been the CEO, but you were the right-hand man, and I would say you probably learned an awful lot over those 15 years.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I said, as our VP Ops was saying here, is, nothing of all the mess we encountered here and of what we had to clean up, we never encountered before. Right? I mean, those are all things we experienced before, just not simultaneous. So, we didn't have to experience simultaneously finding out there's theft in China, needing to restructure that whole part, needing to finish an integration of an acquisition, significant restructuring of the company to reduce the costs, reducing the board of directors from 9 to 6 people, all of those, a whole new strategy. All of those done simultaneously over the last couple of years.
Through, let's see, a pandemic and now a war, right?
Yeah.
And now rising interest rates,
oh my
and
God.
fears of a recession and all of this other stuff. I mean, it's just, you're having a hell of a good time, right?
I'm actually enjoying myself, believe it or not. I really am. It's I think in every one of my past positions, I always, at the end of the day, ended up moving on because I got bored. It's like, okay, I fixed this, I built it, I grew it, X. Now, move on to something else because the day-to-day becomes, to me, boring. There's a long way here still for that.
So Mantis is the latest.
Yeah.
We talked about BD6. What's the size of what is the size of the addressable market for Mantis? I mean, what do you think?
So it's in the the thermal imaging is in the billions of dollars. I don't remember the exact number, but it's massive. We figure that about a third of that market Mantis can address, meaning it can either replace the expensive mid-wave, like the $100,000 cameras, or it can replace the cheaper long wave because it can do long wave plus. So, for example, think of a sniper gun sight. Most of what he needs is in the near range. Near to us means a few kilometers, right? A couple of miles. But so he doesn't need an expensive mid-wave camera. But if now his regular small long wave camera can also detect a muzzle flash, now he gets, a live point on where the enemy sniper is, where the fire is coming from. So we can there replace the long wave, detectors with Mantis because it gives the long wave plus some advantage.
Right.
Now, some markets are going to be
for an additional $5,000 because you said those were 10, like 10.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, that's who wouldn't pay $5,000?
Right. Right.
Pinpointed exactly where the enemy is, right? For firefighting, today wildfire fighting don't have a solution. They simply are not going to buy the $80,000 camera and give one to every fire department.
Right.
So today, they park the fire trucks there to wait to see if smoldering is done. If now you have a $10,000 camera, $15,000 camera that can do it, well, now you rethink it. Now you might actually equip every fire engine with one.
Yeah.
So that's going to be more of a new market, rather than replacing existing ones.
Something tells me, Sam, that you're probably not going to stop coming out with new products.
No, this is just a demonstration of the first one. Absolutely.
Right.
Again, our goal here is to take the key technologies that we own, meaning freeform optics, materials, BD6, coatings, molding capabilities, and to leverage those to make products now. Products like Mantis. So it could be cameras, it could be, I don't know, a laser pointer or a laser rangefinder or anything that I can innovate in and create something better because of my advantages, I'm going to go after.
Yeah, so we didn't even talk about the freeform lenses, which are, your ability to put a lens in any shape.
Any shape. Yeah, exactly. Any shape. In LiDAR, we work with most of the LiDAR companies, I'd say now, because if you can suddenly make a lens that is any shape, well, you know what? Instead of scanning this angle, you can scan this angle. So the one LiDAR laser at the front can suddenly maybe see 180 degrees and not 100 degrees. because you can shape the optics any way you
Right.
want, and not limited to the way it was. So that's a big deal. Now, both LiDAR and AR, VR, which are the main markets for the freeform, have slowed down a bit. LiDAR has gone through, is going still through some consolidation, but there's winners. Our new chairman of the board, Scott Ferris, that just last week was appointed chairman, was the chief business officer of Luminar. That's probably the leading LiDAR company left today, a $2 billion LiDAR company. They went public through a SPAC and highly successful. They're installed in Volvo, in Mercedes, in other cars you can see, and are doing a great job. If for a company like that, they can increase the field of view by 20 degrees, that's worth it, right?
Right. I mean, so look, if you just look at it, if you think about it, autonomous vehicles,
Yep.
medical devices, robotic medical devices, robotic everything. I mean,
Yep.
Visual optical is not going away.
No.
It's only going to get bigger.
Absolutely. So it's interesting you mention it, because other than LiDAR, I think one of our biggest opportunities today relies with putting thermal imaging into cars. And they're doing something brilliant. They're not even trying to give you a picture like you have with your backup camera and a picture for you to see the thermal images around. They're connecting it to the automatic braking system. And so they're putting a simple thermal camera at the very front of the car. If you're driving at night and the automatic braking system can't identify what's in front of you because it just doesn't work well at night, this system can tell you if there's something hot live in front of you and applies the brakes. As simple as that. And we're working with at least 2 companies that are starting to introduce that into cars, into some of the most popular cars. And we're doing the entire assembly there. We've, stepped away from the components. This is a pure full assembly with some electronics in it.
Right.
So a huge opportunity.
Huge opportunity. And I'm just going to say, the stock price has been, and I'm going to go back a ways because I've been following this company for a long time. Right.
Yep.
And the reason is why? Because I see the need for optics growing. It's only going to get bigger. And that's what I've always thought. Right. So as I look at it, the stock has had runs in the past on very insignificant news in my mind. Right.
Yeah.
I've made money in this stock so many times from it having a pop and then a flop. Right.
Sure.
A pop and a flop.
Yeah.
But I'm so used to it. So, but I've always felt as though long term, at some point there is going to be this inflection point, right? And that I believe that inflection point is really close.
I think that what we have now really is value. It is not, news. We announced once a press release about our optics in the Mars rover, and it peaked over that. So that's retail a bit getting excited about something, right?
Right.
You look at the news we have now, a backlog 50% higher than what we've been averaging, 30% higher than every other period, right? Major defense contracts, major ones, funding from the government coming up soon. Automotive, both thermal imaging and LiDAR. Those are all big things. And most importantly, probably us going from a component to a product system company. Even if you don't believe that the margins are necessarily better, and they are better, they're far better, just the fact that we're going from now, our part of the bill of material used to be, maybe $100. And now we're going to be thousands of dollars. We're taking a much bigger portion of the bill of material now, and at much higher average sale prices. Instead of we went from a $5 lens to a $50 complicated lens, maybe a freeform lens, to a $500 assembly. All of that in the last 2.5 years. to now to a thousands of dollars worth of camera, to a $10,000 camera. Those things alone are going to keep pumping our revenue up.
And let's talk about the contract with the military, which even in a rising interest rate environment and recession, all that stuff, military is not going to stop spending.
No,
matter of fact, I believe the military will be spending more.
Absolutely. War is good for business in that sense, unfortunately. But, we just won. We were qualified just now as a provider for an existing, I'd say, very high profile military project that everyone knows about. If I was able to tell you about it, you'd be like, oh, wow. That's something. We got qualified as an existing one. We are getting the majority of the business for that, right? So the military has to dual source. So they're dual sourcing or triple sourcing, but we're getting a massive part, more than 60% of it. And they're happy to actually give us more if we add more capacity here in Orlando.
So that leads to this next question, Sam.
Yeah.
Because growth consumes capital.
Yeah.
Right. And in this environment, everybody is concerned. I can tell you right now, with small caps and micro caps, what is their big concern? That, well, these companies are going to be needing cash and they're going to go out into the marketplace and they're going to get a really, really shitty deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the nice thing is that we've shown and proven over the 2.5 years that I'm here is our tremendous cash discipline. And so, never say never. I cannot say I'm not going to raise money. You need to grow at 50%, as our backlog is indicating. It requires from us more working capital. Mm-hmm. Now, in some cases, we can get great terms, even prepayments from customers to finance that working capital. In others, we need to finance ourselves. I can say that throughout this 2.5 years that I've been here, we never had to tap into neither debt or equity for any operational needs. Our discipline in cash management is great. So would I be able to fund all the growth I'm seeing coming and all of that myself? No. We just aren't generating enough cash for that. Is the government going to step in? Absolutely. We've already received, large amounts, I'd say hundreds of thousands, maybe even, over $1 million from the government in pure funding for some of those projects. And they're going to add much more because replacing germanium is a high priority for them. It's becoming a big deal. Am I going to need to tap into other amounts at some point? Probably so. I can probably load on more debt because I'm, really, I have less debt than I have cash. And I'm generating cash. And I could probably tap into some equity at some point if needed because I'm growing. And, hopefully our shareholders understand that getting equity for growth is a good thing.
Right. So let's just break down. So how many shares fully diluted outstanding?
I don't know exactly. Probably about 26 million, 27.
How many?
26 million,
26. I mean, anything under 100 million, in my mind, is small.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, small. So it's not like if you were to do a capital raise and sell some shares, not here, because I don't think you would sell it here. Mm-hmm. Sam's been around a while. You're not going to do a crappy deal, right? Yeah. Yep. And you're not going to do it when the price on the stock is, I'm going to move this out of the way, is significantly undervalued in my mind.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you would do that, Sam. I just think you're smarter than that. So, I think when we're talking about raising capital, it would be at a time when you have you've got some real pressures because you've got some big orders that have to be filled. And that makes sense to me, right?
Yep.
And I would imagine that if those orders are announced, at some point, fundamentals are going to matter with stocks. I mean, right now, the overall markets, the fear about interest rates and the recession that everybody seems to know we're going into, the most televised recession in the history of mankind, right? I mean, everybody knows.
Yeah.
The cab driver knows, the guy in the elevator knows, everybody knows we're going into a recession. Yeah, that's usually when the opposite happens, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your stock from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
Right. And here's let me just tell you what I see. And I want to actually kind of back this up to a weekly time frame. So each one of these candles represents a week. And, I can see very, very, very clear support at $1. It just keeps hanging there. Right. So you've got some really strong support. And then what you've got going on here is you're kind of, you can see it's coiling up. It's kind of going sideways, right?
Yeah.
And this is your long-term trend line. This one right here, so that's been in place basically since 2020, right? And anybody can see that. Anybody can see that's been a long-term downward trend. But now, if you're listening to what Sam's saying, BD6, Mantis, big contracts, better margins,
lots of defense. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So if you're listening to those things, you're saying, okay, this is coming to an inflection point from a technical standpoint. It's either going to break up or it's going to break down. Right? Where's it going to go? It could go, if it breaks down, to 55 cents. That's your all-time low. So what are you risking? You're risking 50 cents. Where can it go up to? Well, it can go up to a really, let's see where there's actually so your first area of real resistance would probably be about $1. Let's call it $1.25. And then after $1.25, you get up to an area like let's call it $1.60, $1.50, right? Yeah. And then you've got your next area is $2. This sucker can go all the way up to $5, right? And
beans a couple of years ago,
and it went to $5 on really insignificant news. Because how do I know that? Because I was in the stock. So I look at that. So I look at it and I say, this is a whole different company now. This is a very different company from what it was back in 2020, right? And I see a very focused man with a good team that has done this before, right?
Yeah.
You didn't come here to just maintain this business. You came here to grow.
As I said to the board and to shareholders from the very beginning, I did not come here to grow the business organically 15% a year and that's enough. So that's nice. I mean, 15%, but you don't stay a micro cap if you're at that size. We need to grow exponentially in that sense. Things like Mantis does that, because now we're talking about products that are $10,000. So I sell 1,000 of them a year. That's $10 million in sales. With the lenses, if I sold 1,000 a year, yippee-yay, So I got another $10,000 of revenue. This is a whole other ballgame, and this is what we've been aiming at.
And you did this.
The basis and building a real product company
through a pandemic, through some theft and in China and having to deal with that. And so I look at it like this, Sam, if you can do all of this and not blow up your cap table and stay disciplined and come out with new products like this, what happens when things start to normalize maybe and we get through all this stuff,
Absolutely. People will start paying attention. Well, hopefully much earlier than that, but yeah.
But at some point, I believe, Sam, you're going to be rewarded, you and your team, for what you've accomplished, because you have accomplished a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
No,
I
I completely agree. It's
mean, this is not the same light path. This is not the same light path that it's been. And, you know, at some point, it's going to be recognized. I can't tell you when. I can't tell you. What I can say to anybody that's new to the story is, look, if you don't want to buy the stock today, I'm not telling anybody to buy the stock or sell. I don't tell people what to do. All I do is present the facts and the opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
They have to decide for themselves.
Absolutely. I'd say if any of this news, even a fraction of what we've had in the last few weeks, even any of that would have come out, you know, say a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, stock would have been at $5-6, right? I mean, it's amazing how timing matters in those things.
Psychology. I mean, there's so much psychology involved, right?
But if you look at the numbers, if you look at the backlogs, it is, you know, just so much bigger and healthier, so much better. You know, it's China that used to be like our painful commodity space, went down from being 30% of the backlog to 10%, while the backlog grew nearly 50%. You know, that shows you we've grown it with good, healthy business. The revenue coming down the road, the backlogs that will start shipping, you know, in a couple of months, bigger and bigger, is going to be better and better revenue. It's clearly going to.
And you've been consistent. You've been very consistent from the beginning. That, I mean, you didn't come out, you have not overpromised and underdelivered, right? You've had challenges. I mean, and I think people need to understand, you know, things always take longer than you anticipate they're going to take.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it just, that's the nature of the beast, I think. I mean, and even when things are going that way, sometimes it takes longer for the street to understand it, to comprehend it. Nobody's paying attention or whatever. It always takes longer. But if you know, that's what this is the only thing that matters, is if you know nothing is fundamentally changed to the negative and it's all positive, then when a stock goes down like this, you recognize this is a gift.
Yeah.
And if you had it from $3, who cares?
Yeah.
Double or triple up at $1.
Yeah.
And then, when this thing does go, because nothing fundamentally has changed, it's only gotten better. If you know that, you have the conviction to be able to pull the trigger when that price is dropping, right? Because it's not dropping because of anything fundamental at all, right? It's an opportunity. Everything else that goes on sale in the world, when it goes on sale, it's like, oh man, I bought this on sale. When stocks go on sale, for some reason, I don't know. You're not supposed to add to a losing trade. Okay, whatever. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. If you know what the company does and you are comfortable and you have conviction in the management that they're not going to do anything stupid. Sam, do you own shares in the company?
Oh, of course. I keep buying. Just last week, I think I bought more in the open market.
In the open market?
At this price, I buy, anything my wife allows me to.
All right. So you're buying in the open market. You seem very relaxed. I got to tell you, because a lot of CEOs, I talk to them, some of them look pretty stressed out. You know what I mean? You don't seem very stressed at all.
I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I think that I can say now with a huge confidence, we're successful. We are now at a point that, I'm good. Of course, I wanted to be at this point a year ago, but okay, shit happens. Excuse my we're at a very good place right now. We're going into the new calendar year really strong, I think.
And we've determined, I think we clearly spelled out that the optics market is not going to shrink.
Nah, it's growing anywhere from 20 to 25% a year. I mean, that sort of depends which market to study you read, but yeah.
All right,
Huge.
Sam.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to thank you for coming in and giving us the update. Here's what I want to do though, because we let this go too long. We need
Yeah,
to we need
should,
to
yeah.
Yep. Right. We need to stay.
You know what?
Closer.
I'd say let's even schedule for a couple of months from now. I'm sure
Okay.
that even by then we'll have some great things to talk about.
All right, Sam. This was awesome.
Great. Thank you, Tim.
You
Much
bet. Hold on one second. I'm gonna, unless you
Yep.
feel there's something we missed that we have to highlight.
No, I think you know, you touched on everything. Thanks.
All right, hold on one second. Let me just end this. Hey there, folks. Thanks for tuning in today to listen to this interview with Sam Rubin from Lightpath Technologies Inc., ticker symbol LPTH. If you enjoyed today's interview, please do us a favor and give us a like. Why not give us a share? And while you're at it, how about giving us a follow? Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Trading wishes you the very best of success.